All right, so you're trying to build like this killer company culture,
Right.
right? But everyone's remote.
Yeah.
You might think that's kind of a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
But get this, it might actually be an advantage.
An advantage.
Yeah, so episode 48 of Leaders Who Scale dives into this whole remote culture thing.
Okay.
And apparently, studies show that remote teams can be more engaged than their in-office counterparts.
Really? See, that's so interesting to me because you would think that those like quick hallway chats
Right.
or those like spontaneous coffee runs would be like crucial to building that strong culture.
Totally.
What's the secret sauce? How's that possible?
Well, we actually call it the remote culture paradox.
Okay.
Um, and Elena Torres, who's a chief people officer that they interviewed, said it all comes down to intentionality.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You can't just hope for the best in a remote setup. You have to be deliberate about it. Like if you're not going to run into someone at the coffee machine,
Right.
you have to create those opportunities.
Yeah.
So what are they saying? How do you do that?
So they break it down into like this awesome framework of 4 pillars.
Okay.
So first up, structured spontaneity.
Wait, structured and spontaneity in the same phrase.
I know, right?
That sounds like trying to plan a surprise party.
Right. But they make it work. So think of it like this.
Okay.
Like virtual coffee roulette. You're randomly paired with a colleague for a quick chat.
Oh, fun.
Or you have those dedicated online spaces just for like those water cooler moments.
Oh, I like that. It's
Yeah.
like you're not forcing those random encounters, but you're creating an environment where they can flourish.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Oh, it makes you wonder, do some in-person companies actually drop the ball on this?
Totally.
Even with everyone in the same building.
Yeah.
Like maybe we can all learn a thing or two from this whole structured spontaneity approach.
Absolutely food for thought.
Okay, so that was pillar number 1.
Okay, what's number 2?
Asynchronous excellence.
Asynchronous excellence.
Yeah.
Now, there's a word you don't hear every day. Right. Break that down for me. What does that even mean?
So essentially, it's like you have to be a rock star communicator even when everyone's in different time zones,
Okay.
working on their own schedules.
Right, because it's so easy to be like, oh, it's 3 p.m. my time.
Right.
Let me just send this email.
Yeah, and then you forget.
And then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I woke you up.
Exactly. But in all seriousness, it is about being mindful.
Yeah.
Things like clear documentation, shared knowledge bases, and just being respectful of everyone's time zones.
That's key.
Yeah.
That's huge. And I feel like a lot of companies, even with offices, can improve on that.
Totally.
This whole remote work thing has really shown how crucial it is
Yeah.
to nail that asynchronous communication.
Okay, you ready for pillar number 3?
Hit me with it.
Okay. This one is called virtual team traditions.
Okay.
And before you roll your eyes at another awkward Zoom happy hour,
We've all been there.
this is about more than just those one-off events. It's about creating rituals and traditions that become like ingrained in the company's culture.
I like it.
So online celebrations,
Yeah.
digital recognition programs, even just like a fun weekly team check-in
Good.
where like work talk is completely off limits.
Yeah, you need that to
Yeah.
feel like you're part of a team.
Exactly.
Even if you're not physically together.
And it doesn't have to be complicated at all.
Yeah.
At my last company, every Friday afternoon, someone would share a picture of their pet in the team chat.
Oh, that's so cute.
It sounds silly,
I love it.
but it was something we all looked forward to. It
Yeah.
was just like a little dose of lightness and connection.
Those little things make a big difference.
Right.
You
know?
do.
Okay, ready for the final pillar. Bring it on.
Cultural documentation.
Cultural documentation.
Yes, and I know it sounds kind of dry,
A little bit, yeah.
but it's super important, especially in a remote setting.
Right.
Because it's about taking all those values, those practices, those like unwritten rules that make your company tick.
Right. And putting them into a format that's accessible to everyone.
I love it.
Yeah.
Instead of having like the dusty employee handbook on a shelf somewhere
Right.
that nobody looks at.
Exactly. So think like clearly articulated values,
Yes.
guidelines for communication and collaboration, even just playbooks for common processes.
Yeah, okay.
It's about creating clarity and consistency so everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense when you're onboarding new employees.
Yes.
Especially if they're remote
Yeah.
and you can't physically walk them through the office.
Yeah.
That documentation is everything.
It's like a virtual buddy system.
Exactly.
Okay, so those are the 4 pillars of remote culture success.
Okay, let's recap them one more time.
Okay.
So we've got structured spontaneity.
Yep.
Asynchronous excellence.
Yes.
Virtual team traditions.
Mm-hmm.
And cultural documentation.
Nailed it.
We did it. I feel like a lot of companies are probably doing some of these things well. But Maybe not all of them. So I'm curious, how does this actually play out in a real-world setting?
So the episode actually shares this super cool case study about a company called RemoteStack
Okay.
that is doing some pretty remarkable things in this space.
Uh,
So RemoteStack, they're fully remote,
okay.
hundreds of employees, and they block out time on everyone's calendars
Okay.
for what they call culture hours.
Culture hours. All right. I like it already.
But here's the kicker. During culture hours, no work is allowed.
Whoa, hold on.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, it's so easy when you're remote to just be working all the time.
Oh, totally.
You're always on, and to like actually carve out that time
Yes.
and then enforce it. I love that.
Right. And it's not just like sitting there on Zoom awkwardly.
Okay.
They use the time for virtual team building games, online cooking classes,
Yeah.
even just smaller groups that just want to use the time to chat.
Oh, cool.
No agenda or anything.
Yeah, it can't be forced. It
Exactly.
has to be something that people actually want to do.
Yeah. And that's what's happened at RemoteStack.
Yeah.
They interviewed the CEO, James Wong, and he was saying how at first it felt kind of weird,
Yeah.
kind of forced.
I bet.
And now it's like the heartbeat of the company.
Wow.
He said morale has shot up collaborations through the roof.
Really?
Even their creative output has increased since they started doing this.
That's incredible.
It's pretty amazing.
What a concept. Just like fostering that connection
Yes.
can make that big of a difference.
And it's what this whole episode's about, right?
Yeah.
It's not about recreating that in-person experience.
Yeah.
It's about taking advantage of the fact that you're a remote team
Totally.
and building something new and even better.
It reminds me of like when the printing press was invented.
Okay.
They weren't trying to perfectly replicate like handwritten manuscripts, and they were
Yeah.
like, oh, we can do this differently. We
Yeah.
can make this even better.
Totally.
We can make information more accessible.
I love that analogy. Okay, so RemoteStack, they're onto something with these culture hours.
They are.
But what about like the rest of us
Yeah.
who don't even know where to start with this whole remote culture thing?
Right.
How do we put this into practice?
Yeah, because it sounds great in theory,
Right.
but how do you actually do it?
Well, luckily they give us a 4-week plan
Okay.
to actually implement these 4 pillars.
They do. Okay.
And we don't have time to go through every single little detail.
Okay.
But there's one thing that really stood out to me.
What's that?
Assessment.
Assess.
Before you even like change anything.
Interesting. So before you revamp everything,
Yeah.
you need to know where you're starting from.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's like going to the doctor.
Right.
They don't just like prescribe you meds
Yeah.
without figuring out what's wrong.
Without like running some tests,
Exactly.
doing a checkup.
And this is what so many companies skip over.
Really?
Yeah, they're like, let's just implement solutions
Oh.
without even knowing what the problem is.
Yeah. Without knowing the problem. Interesting.
So how do they say that we should go about assessing our company culture?
Yeah, I'm curious.
It's more than just sending out a survey.
Okay.
It's about auditing your existing cultural touch points,
Okay.
having conversations with your team about how they like to communicate,
Yeah.
where they feel connected, where they feel disconnected,
I like it.
even mapping out your communication patterns.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
To really see, like, are people actually connecting, or are those communication channels
Oh,
non-existent?
exactly. And this is all before you start implementing all the friend stuff.
Right. Get a baseline.
Yeah,
Then build from there.
I like it.
Yeah.
But they don't stop there. So this whole episode has been about building great remote cultures intentionally.
Yeah. It's been pretty eye-opening.
But get this, they say this whole remote-first culture building thing, it's not just for remote teams.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, like they're saying by figuring out how to make remote work thrive,
Right.
it could actually help everyone.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. Okay.
Yeah, so these principles we've been talking about,
Yeah.
like prioritizing that asynchronous communication,
Yeah. Right.
being really clear about your values,
Yeah.
making that effort to build those traditions.
Yeah.
They could actually benefit any company.
It's true. I mean, it makes you wonder,
Right.
are those of us who are still going into an office, like, maybe we're stuck in our old ways a little bit,
Totally.
and maybe we're missing out on these opportunities to make work more, I don't know, more engaging, more connected.
Right, because we haven't been forced to adapt like this.
Exactly.
It's like we've been so busy trying to get back to that pre-pandemic normal
Right.
that we haven't stopped to think, like, what if there's a better way?
Yeah, what if this is our chance to hit the reset button
Exactly.
and, like, actually design something even better than what we had before?
It's a really cool way to look at it.
It is. It's like this whole remote work experiment.
Yeah.
might have been a blessing in disguise because it's forced us to be more intentional, more human in how we design work and how we think about these things.
Yeah, and those are lessons that any team can benefit from.
Any team for sure.
So there you have it.
There you have it.
A deep dive into remote culture building, all thanks to leaders who scale.
Yes.
We talked about that remote culture paradox. We broke down those 4 pillars of success.
We did.
And we even got a glimpse into what Remote Stack is doing with those culture hours.
So cool.
Yeah. And like we talked about, the future of work might not be about where we work, but how we work.
Exactly.
It's about bringing that same intentionality,
right,
that same focus on connection to every workplace.
Whether it's in-person, remote, hybrid, whatever.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
about making those human connections.
It's so true. And I think that's a really good note to end on.
It is.
So to wrap things up, building a great culture takes effort no matter where your team is.
Yeah, but it's possible.
It is. And maybe by taking some of these remote-first principles, we can actually create a more connected, more engaging, more human work experience for everybody.
Now, that's a goal worth striving for.
Absolutely. Until next time, keep those virtual coffee dates brewing, keep those culture-building ideas flowing. We'll catch you on the next Deep Dive.